Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking those outdated headlines you usually see and completely dismantling them to reveal what is, honestly, probably the most critical geopolitical and economic shift of our lifetime. We're not getting bogged down in old narratives today. Instead, we're looking forward. We're going to examine exactly why governments, big investors, and economists are increasingly viewing Africa as one of the most vital regions of the future, and why it could quite literally shape the next century. Because, there's a totally different story actually unfolding on the ground right now. We really need to rapidly contrast those old stereotypes of poverty with the modern, verified realities. We're looking at some of the fastest growing metropolitan cities on the planet. I'm talking about places like Lagos and Nairobi. We're seeing explosive innovation from tech startups, sprawling solar farms, and bustling high-tech modern ports. It's just a story of profound transformation. So that brings us to the big central question for today's explainer. Could Africa become the defining continent of the 21st century? The sheer scale of the opportunity here is just staggering, which is exactly why global investors, tech giants, and world governments are obsessively watching this region right now. Okay, part one. Beyond the headlines, let's look at the reality of the continent. 54. It is absolutely essential we get this straight right off the bat. Africa is not a single monolith. It is not one giant country. It's a massive continent made up of 54 distinct, sovereign nations. To put that sheer size into perspective, you could physically fit China, the United States, India, and a huge chunk of Europe entirely inside its borders. And every single one of these 54 nations has its own government, its own economic policies, and its own completely unique trajectory. So treating the entire continent like it's just one big entity, it completely ignores this incredibly vast complexity. We are talking about extreme geographic variety here, ranging from the harsh sands of the Sahara Desert to incredibly dense, lush rainforests. There are thousands of distinct spoken languages, and these rich, ancient cultural tapestries. You simply cannot paint 54 unique regional economies with one single brush. But, having said that, across all of that staggering diversity, there is this one undeniable, unifying trend that is catching the entire world's attention. Because, everything changes when you look at the demographics. Moving on to part two, the population revolution and the workforce of tomorrow. The sheer scale of the numbers here is just staggering. Based on United Nations projections, by the year 2100, nearly 1 out of every 3 people on Earth could live in Africa. That is 33% of the global population. Just think about that for a second. The gravitational pull of humanity is actively shifting. So what's driving this? Well, it's a mix of rapid population growth and literally the world's youngest workforce, where the median age is hovering right around 19 years old. Millions of people are moving into cities, which is expanding this really hungry middle class and surging university enrollments. But we have to recognize that this youth boom is definitely a double-edged sword. It is an enormous opportunity for unparalleled economic growth, absolutely, but it's equally a massive pressure test for infrastructure and job creation. Now that human capital, it's immense. But hidden beneath the ground lies another reason this continent matters just as much. Part 3, the resource advantage and powering the green transition. If you really want to understand the future of the global supply chain, you got to look at the ground. Vast reserves of cobalt and lithium are the fundamental backbone of electric vehicle batteries. Copper is completely mandatory for building out our renewable energy grids, and rare earth elements drive our smartphones and all our advanced tech. And that's all alongside your traditional heavy-hitting commodities like oil, natural gas, and gold. The global transition to green energy simply cannot happen with the materials found in African mines. But, we've got to look at this objectively. As massive as this resource potential is, we cannot ignore the severe realities on the ground. Extraction presents some really significant environmental hurdles. Plus, ensuring that all this wealth actually benefits local populations rather than just enriching foreign investors remains a highly critical governance challenge for these sovereign nations. Everyone always talks about the minerals, right? But Africa's greatest advantage isn't actually what most people think. It's time to look past those traditional exports and toward a sector that is actively leapfrogging the old development models entirely. Which brings us to part 4, the new African economy, integration and innovation. We are seeing an absolute explosion of technology hubs across the continent. Just take mobile banking as an example. Africa's digital payment infrastructure rivals or honestly even exceeds many Western nations. Systems like M-Pesa in Kenya, They revolutionized digital finance years before Apple Pay even existed. They are securing massive investments in solar farms and really growing their domestic manufacturing. They're basically building brand new economic blueprints from scratch, rather than waiting for old infrastructure to be built. And driving a huge chunk of this new economy is something called the AfCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is a truly monumental agreement designed to integrate economies and completely reshape supply chains across all 54 nations. Economists are looking at this and thinking this internal integration could alter global trade dynamics forever, essentially by creating one of the largest unified single markets in the world, rivaling the sheer scale of the European Union. So, with a unified market of that unprecedented size emerging, you better believe the world's biggest powers are already preparing for this shift. Part 5. Challenges and Geopolitics and the Global Competition. This has essentially triggered a brand new geopolitical scramble. China, the United States, the European Union, India, and the Gulf countries, they are fiercely competing right now. They're vying for diplomatic influence, they're trying to secure those critical mineral supply chains, and they're pouring billions into ports and railways. It is a massive, multipolar race to partner with these nations as their strategic and economic importance absolutely skyrockets. But just to ground all of this optimism for a second, the hurdles to lasting prosperity are still incredibly steep. There are major infrastructure gaps that need bridging. There are ongoing struggles with getting widespread access to quality healthcare, education, and stable governance. And perhaps most dauntingly, the disproportionate impacts of global climate change are directly threatening water and food security. These are major systemic issues that have to be solved to turn all this potential into lasting reality. So, think about this. The next century may not belong to one single nation, but to the choices made across this entire continent. Really feel the weight of that. The future of global climate policy, international trade routes, the green energy transition, and the next big wave of technological innovation, they all heavily rely on Africa's success. The coming decades are going to be the ultimate test of whether infrastructure, education, and governance can actually transform this enormous potential into real prosperity. Ultimately, Africa's greatest strength isn't its geography, and it's not the critical minerals in the ground. It's the people. Understanding this continent's trajectory is no longer optional. It is absolutely essential to understanding the future of the global economy. The world is changing fast, and now you understand why. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning those headlines and keep learning.
Thanks for watching World Decoded. Make sure to like and share, subscribe, and stay curious.